Whenever Berserk is talked about or even relatively mentioned, there is one thing that no one ever talks about, and that would be Berserk's world building. And really, it's a shame, because Berserk has some of the best world building in manga and probably fiction as a whole. Most people can't even begin to fathom how important it is for a world to feel real. And Berserk does just that. Not only are you engrossed by its world, but you are also informed as you begin to take in different cultures, religions, and history of every single country and their respective empires. For instance, we have our most notable location known as Midland, and it has this name for a reason. This is due to it being the land in the middle, while its religion and practice would be the Holy See. This religion would have a huge impact on the entirety of Midland. And of course, with that being said, the kingdom and its loyal subjects would practice their worship within the Holy See and its monotheism. And with religion playing such a huge role within Midland, it's no wonder that the religion itself would influence the people and cause them to take action due to their beliefs. At times you will see people hunt each other down and burn them at the stake. Now, why would they do this? They would do this all because of their religion. Their religion caused them to burn people alive. And this says a lot about religion and the world of Berserk. With Midland being located within the religious sphere of the Holy See, the people of Midland would ultimately have no choice on the matter of whether or not they would follow these practices. The ideal citizen of Midland would be expected to follow in the practices of the Holy See, because after all, the vast majority of Midland's society would already follow this religion. And so, if one were to go against such a religion, the common viewpoint would be to go against the Holy See is to go against Midland. In simpler terms, to go against God is to go against the kingdom, which can put into perspective as to why the heretic hunts were so punishing. If you were against the religion, you would be viewed as a traitor on the spot, and so it would only be natural that they would burn you at the stake. And if Midland has enough nerve to deem its own citizens as traitors, of course they would have their own rivals, with those rivals being the Tudor Empire. The Tudor Empire also happens to share the same religion as Midland. Now, why would two empires who share the same beliefs be at each other's throats? And this gives us another layer to the world of Berserk, and that would be its politics. Even though Tudor and Midland share the same religious beliefs, they would undoubtedly fight each other for one simple thing, and that would be power. All in the name of conquest and territory, which would lead to war and cause people to lose their lives over rocks and ideologies. And now, in a big contrast to the empires previously mentioned, we have the Kushin Empire. And the Kushians have a completely different set of beliefs and culture. Unlike Midland, who worships the Holy See, the Kushin Empire practices the worship of Buddha. And with Midland and the Kushins having different beliefs, and as we know, Midland is no stranger to pushing its beliefs onto its own people, it would be no surprise as to why these two empires would clash. With a difference in culture and religion, followed by a thirst for power and a fear of the unknown, these empires would naturally be enemies. Not to mention that these empires would have a long history behind them that would date back to as long as 1,000 years ago. And during this period, multiple states, races, and tribes would engage in constant warfare. Now that doesn't sound too different from the time that takes place in the story as we speak, with a single empire being made that would unify every continent. And yet this same empire fell, with every single race and tribe splitting up once again. Why did they split up, and how exactly did they rebuild their civilization is a huge piece of the history that takes place in this world that we still need to learn about. There are even religious monuments that have stood the test of time and allow us to learn more about the history of Berserk, with each tower having its own connection to the religion and everything that happened before this time. With the Tower of Rebirth existing 1,000 years ago, it was made with the sole purpose of hiding away history, so that the unclean past during Geyseric's rule would never be shown to the public. While the Tower of Conviction is also tied to King Geyseric, where it is said that he imprisoned a sage who then prayed for the downfall of Geyseric, in which God responded and answered to his call. The backstories of both of these towers remain a mystery, yet they continue to be prime examples of the time that existed before this one. And we haven't even begun to talk about how magic has affected this world. With the addition of magic, locations that we never would have thought that existed can finally come into reality, such as Skellig Island or Elf Island, which is overseen by mages and is the very home of the elf race, which I'm sure has its own set of history and values that they associate with their practices of magic. And the magic itself would continue to affect the world around them, causing the world itself to ultimately change. Magic would bring in monsters such as a dragon, a cockatrice, and beings from another dimension entirely. The world of Berserk would exist in that of a triangle, with the physical world, the world of idea, and the astral world all existing at once. And these three different worlds come into play in their own unique ways, with the physical world being the world that we know it in the Golden Age, with nothing but humans walking around pursuing their day-to-day lives and dealing with rival kingdoms in the name of conquest and glory. While in the astral world, spirits would exist, and this would be due to the fact that the astral world is the afterlife. Elves and trolls would exist in the astral world, with them existing in its most common surface-leveled layer. However, if you were to travel deeper within the astral world, you would run into angels and demons. And even so, there are more beings that lie deeper within, so much so to a point that most beings are unknown, which brings into the possibility of the existence of interdimensional gods. And if mages really tried to explore the depths of the astral world, 9 times out of 10, they would not make it back out alive. And last but not least, we have the world of idea, which is the world of the soul and the origin of existence. With it being called the world of idea, you can only imagine that it would work somewhat like this. If someone were to think of something, they would then have an idea of something, and then that same idea would be able to be put into play and come into reality. And this very process is what allows creatures of legend and folklore to exist in Berserk. Only monsters from your wildest dreams and nightmares would be able to exist by residing within the world of idea. And hereafter the mention of all three of these worlds, they would all collide. Within the physical realm where all humans exist, angels, demons, elves, trolls, monsters of legends and myths, and worst of all, any monster you could think of would be able to exist because it was thought of. Because someone had the idea of a monster, it could end up being something you wake up to the next morning. And with this, we see the world itself evolve and quite possibly turn into chaos. And in response to this, we see civilization rebuild itself and rebrand itself in the name of Falconia, in order to combat these new mystical beings in the likes of which we've never seen before, so that humanity itself can prosper. And through seeing the world with and without magic, we can begin to understand how surreal the entire world of Berserk feels, yet everything feels believable because the world itself feels alive. and without the minor details of culture and history spread throughout this world, at times it may even go unnoticed, but it still goes to show that Berserk itself is alive.